We continue now at the top of Daf Tzadi Aleph Meseches Eruvin. This is Eruvin Daf 90a. The Gemara here is continuing a statement of Rava. Rava said that sometimes when you make a daka, it could actually create an isser. In other words, even according to Rabbi Meir, that all the roofs are considered to be one rishus, you can carry from one to the other. But if a person walled in all of his roofs and he created an opening away from the roof towards the garden, so then L'neture tarbitza hu de'avida, he's showing that he's doing it in order to protect the garden. And Rashi says, V'silai atzmo min hagag, and he has actually removed himself from the roof, so he would no longer have rishus on that roof. So in some situations, when you create a daka, you're doing the contrary. You're not showing that you're taking possession of the roof, you're showing that you're giving up your possession of the roof, and you can no longer carry there. Gemara now says, Boy Rami Bar Chama. Rami Bar Chama asks the following question: Shtei amos begag or shtei amos ba'amud. Let's say a person, he has 2 amos on the roof and then 2 amos on the amud. Rashi over here says, Beis amos begag zeh kirav sfir le damar gag shebein hagagin ein metalton bo'el bedalid the asri adadi. Right now we're asking a question according to Rav's opinion. Let's say you have one roof which really belongs to multiple residents. It's one large roof, but underneath there are different houses. All under one roof. So in such a case, you're only allowed to move Dalet Amos, no more than Dalet Amos on each roof. So Ma'u l'taltal me'achas mehen lo omud ha'omed b'rishus harabim samach lo gavoa yud v'rachav Dalet. Can you carry from one of these roofs onto a pillar which is in Rishus Harabim, but the pillar itself has the dimensions of Rishus Hayachid? So the Gemara says, Amar Rabba answered Rami Bar Chama, my kami boile. What kind of question is this? Karmelis v'rishus hayachid kami boile. You're asking a question, can you transfer from a karmelis to a rishus hayachid? As we said, the roof is considered a karmelis. It's parts to an area that it's totally usher to. And you're transferring to this pillar, which is a rishus hayachid. It should certainly be usher. Rashi says, Bitmiya, this is asked in wonderment. Kilomar pshita da usher. It's obviously usher. Da gag karmelisu kadamrin and ein metalton bo'el bedalid. We said the gag effectively is a karmelis. According to Rav, you cannot carry more than 4 amos. V'yamid rishus hayachid, and the pillar is a rishus hayachid. So what's even the question? Gemara says, V'Rami Bar Chama agav churfei lo ayin ba. Rami Bar Chama, because of the speed at which he was learning, he didn't consider his question properly, and that's why, in fact, he had asked a bad question. Elahachi kami baile. Here actually was the question that he was asking. Beis amos begag. Let's say you carry 2 amos on the roof. Again, the roof is effectively a karmelis. Ubeis amos be'achsadra, and then 2 amos in an achsadra, and again, achsadra is like a portico. It's a roofed area, but it's missing walls. Mahu, what would be the halach in such a situation? Rashi over here explains, Ubeis amos be'achsadra shel bailam acherim. You're carrying 2 amos on the achsadra that belongs to somebody else. Al gab tikra shel achsadra yosum beis asayim. The case here is you're carrying another 2 amos on the roof of the achsadra. The achsadra itself is more than a beis asayim. V'ein la mechitza, v'ein la pitikra. There's no mechitza there. So in such a situation, what are we going to say? The name of Yord V'sosim, you're not going to even say, there's no even edge of a roof to say Pitikra Yord V'sosim. Te'avida Kyorzila B'shipua Gagag and Shalon. It's made with a slant. You don't have Pitikra. Ochidam and Bosim Pasan. Dahashta Havalanami Carmelis. So the roof of the Achsadra is also a Carmelis. Ma'al L'taltal Mizelazeh. So can you carry from the roof, which is effectively a Carmelis, to the Achsadra, which is a Carmelis, or not? And the Gemara explains the question again. Ma'u, what's the halacha? Mi Amrino, do we say Kevan de lo hai chazi l'dira? V'lo hai chazi l'dira chad reshusi. All of these areas are not chazi to live on, so it's all basically like one reshus. And Rashi says, V'afa bisha einan shel isha echad, even though they don't belong to the same person, ein b'hem chilik reshusa, it's not going to be considered different reshuyos. V'afilu rabbanan, that's true even according to the rabbanan who consider separate roofs to be separate reshuyos. D'lo damu l'shnei gagen, d'hasam ika diur and lamata b'shneim. In the case of a roof, you have people living under the roof, separate individuals actually living there. V'yesh lomer kashem sheyesh chilik reshus lamata bebatim kach yesh chilik lamala. You could say, just like there's a chilik reshuyos in the lower area in the houses, there's also a chilik reshuyos on the roofs. The chilik lamata solik v'yazel le'il. The same chilik that applies below applies on top. Aval be'achsadra lekalamemar hachi. You can't say such logic by an achsadra, and therefore by an achsadra maybe chadar reshusa, maybe it's all one reshus. Oh, Dilmar, maybe kevad the migagla gag asir migagla achsadra nami asir. Since it's asir to carry from roof to roof, it is also asir to carry from the gag to the achsadra. Boyer of Bevi Barabai asks the following question: Beis amos begag ubeis amos bechurba mahu. What's the halacha going 2 amos on the roof and 2 amos on top of a rune? Rashi over here says bechurba shel acherim. You have a churba that belongs to others. Uprutzo l'rishus harabim, and it opens up into rishus harabim. To have a nami karmelis kegag ben hagag, and that also should have the status of a karmelis, like a roof among the roofs. So it's basically the same question again. What's the halacha? Amar Rav Kahana said, Lav Hainu de Rami Bar Chama. You're asking the exact same question Rami Bar Chama asked. There's no real difference between a Churban and a Achsadra. Why are you repeating the question? Amar Rabbevi Bar Abai responded, V'chi me'acher asoi unitzoi. Am I coming from a different point and arguing? Rashi explains what that means. V'chi me'acher asoi v'nitzoi mipi acher basi v'chilakti b'sheilo shesheilo acher. You think I'm just mouthing the same question as someone else? Basi lakanter bitmiya. You think that I am just coming to argue with the exact same argument? Of course, my question has a different wrinkle than the previous question. And he explains as follows. The Rabbevi Bar Abaya says, Achsadra lo chazi ladira. An achsadra is not even fit to live in. V'churba chazi ladira. But a churba already, that's already fit to live in. That's why I'm asking. That's why it's different. The Gemara says, why still? V'chimeachar de chazi ladira mai komi boile. But just because it's fit to live in, what is the question exactly? So the Gemara explains, Im Tim Salomar Kamar. Rabbevi Bar Abaya was asking an Im Tim Salomar. Im Tim Salomar achsadra lo chazi ladira. If you're going to say that by an achsadra it's not fit for dira, churba chazi ladira. Maybe a churba is chazi ladira. Odil mahashtam yelespa diurin. Or maybe it's the same as an achsadra because it has nobody living there. Teku, so we'll leave it as a question. And Rashi here explains exactly what he means. Mai komi boile halodami lagag v'aser. First is what's the question? It's not even similar to roof. It should be aser. So Gemara says im tim salomar kamer to im tim salomar kalomar lo pshita l'Rebbevi that they have a churba chazi ladira. First of all, Rabbevi wasn't sure that a churba was chazi ladira. He wasn't sure that it's like an achsadra. It's a little bit better than an achsadra. He was asking an additional question beyond Rami Bar Chama. Here was the question. Let's assume that we said that in the situation of an achsadra, it is permissible. You're allowed to carry from the roof to the achsadra. What would be over here? Over there, the achsadra is not fit at all to be living in. So therefore, from the roof to the achsadra, maybe it's permitted. But the churba already you do a little bit, you can live there. Maybe that's not true. So in other words, what his question really was, if you're going to say that by the achsadra it's permissible, if you're going to answer the question in that direction, by the churba, I'm not really 100% that should be that should be true, because the churba itself is chazi ladir. It might be a little different than the achsadra. Maybe more reason to say that it's not permitted. And now the Gemara moves on to another question. Gagin hashavin l'Rebbi Meir. Let's say you have a bunch of residents. They all live under one roof, according to Rebbe Meir, so that entire roof is considered like one rishus. V'gag yechidi l'Rabbanan, or the same way we can ask the question, let's say you have a single roof belongs to one resident, according to the Rabbanan, but the cases in both situations, this is a very large roof. It is more than a beis ha'asayim. So you have an issue over here of maybe it should be like a karfef more than a beis ha'asayim. It should be considered like a karmelis. So Rav Amarav says muter l'taltal b'kulo. Rav says you can carry in the entire thing. Shmuel says you're only allowed to carry Dalet Amos. Shmuel says, well, it's more than a beis ha'asayim, so it's all one roof more than a beis ha'asayim, no different than a karfef more than a beis ha'asayim. You only get 4 Amos. It's a karmelis. And Rav says, no, it's, as we're going to see, Rav says it's considered mukaf ladira. It's considered surrounded for dira purposes. Therefore, you're allowed to carry in the entire thing. It's considered like a rishus hayachid. So the Gemara says, Rav Amar Mutter L'Tatal B'Kulo Kasha de Rav de Rav. Rav says you can carry in the whole thing. Isn't that a contradiction between the different statements of Rav? Rashi over here explains what's the contradiction. Kasha de Rav de Rav. D'Amar Rav Le'el Begagan Hashavin L'Rabbanan. Remember, Rav said before, when you have one roof for a bunch of different residents according to the Rabbanan, the Asri Hadadi. So each one asers on each other because we don't say good asik on those middle walls that separate between each resident. Al Malo Amar good asik mechitza shebeneim lios muvdelas hachinami begagan hashavin l'Reb Meir. Same thing over here. Nihinami dehalo aser chavre dechad reshusa mashvilu. Okay, so the entire roof is one reshus. Miu b'nei reshus harabim hoveres lefneim ulacharem let's see the hachitzonos. All the people surrounding this one huge roof and the Rishus Harabim, they should aser amaylo asri alayu halaka mechitzos. You don't have mechitzos. Now the Gemara is going to give the obvious answer for Rav that you do have mechitzos because these are mechitzos hanikaros. The outer walls are actually nikar. That's what the Gemara is about to explain. But in any case, the Gemara says kasha de Rav, and the Gemara answers hasam laminkar mechitzasa. When Rav was strict in the situation previously, meaning in a situation of gagin hashavin lirabonon, so in that case it was because you don't have minkar mechitzasa. You don't have clear mechitzas, you can't say good asik. Hacha minkar mechitzasa. Here, the outer walls of this enormous building, they actually are minkar. You could see them from the outside, and therefore we apply good asik, and it's a separated roof. It's completely separate. It's also mukaf ladira according to Rav, and you can carry on the whole roof. Shmuel Amar Shmuel says, Ein metalton boil b'dalet amos. You're only allowed to carry dalet amos. Kasha de Shmuel ad de Shmuel. We have a question Shmuel on Shmuel. The Gemara is saying it's a question Shmuel on Shmuel because in a situation where you had Gag and Hashav and L'Rabbanan, you could carry, because we said that each, at least within each roof, within each part of the roof over each residence, because there you said good asik, and you said they're all separate. Every little part of the roof that belongs to a different individual becomes separate. And the Gemara answers simply, Hasam lo have yosemi beis hasayim, hach have yosemi beis hasayim. Over there, when you have different residents underneath the roof, so each little area of the roof is less than a beis hasayim, you can carry in the whole thing. Here, though, we're looking at the whole roof as one rishus. If you're looking at the whole roof as one rishus, it's more than a beis hasayim, you can't carry. And as Shmuel continues to explain, V'hani mechitzos lemato avidon lemala lo avidon. Over here, he says, you cannot say good asik and say that it is mukaf ladira, because those mechitzos down below, they're made to live under the roof. Therefore, the area on the roof becomes like a karfif more than a beis hasayim, shelo hukaf ladira, which is not hukaf ladira. If you have a karfif more than a beis hasayim that's not hukaf ladira, ein metalton bo ela bedalid. You're only allowed to carry 4 amos. So basically, the real machlokus between Rav and Shmuel is when you have a situation of good asik that's raising the walls, and those walls were made ladira for the area under the roof. Can we also say that the area on top of the roof is considered mukaf ladira? In this situation, Rav is the lenient opinion, and Shmuel is strict. Now, I'm going to take a quick look at a document because it's more relevant to the next Amud, but it's good to get a look at it now. What's happening over here is as follows, just to take a look at what we have so far. Again, according to the Rabbanan, if you have a one roof, but it's a bunch of different residents, they're all considered separate rishuyos. According to Rabbi Meir, they're all considered one rishus. That we've already said many times. And so now the first case that the Gemara analyzed, again, a previous daf, was, let's say you have separate residences under one roof according to the Rabbanan, meaning according to the Rabbanan that they're all separate rishuyos, so now you're all under one roof. Are you allowed to carry in each roof, above each resident, fully, or you only have 4 amos? On that, Rav said you can't carry more than 4 amos because you don't apply good asik in such a situation. Should be good asik. You don't apply good asik if the mechitzos are in nicker. And Shmuel says, no, you apply good asik, so each part of the roof that belongs to a different resident is independent, and you're allowed to carry. And now what we have over here is case number 2. This is our Amud. Case number 2 is, let's do the exact same case. You have separate residences under one roof, but now, according to Rabbi Meir, so the entire roof is still one rishus. Or, similarly, you could do one residence according to the Rabbanan, so the entire roof is one huge rishus, if it's more than a beis hasayim. So in this case, you have a machlokas Rav and Shmuel the other way. Rav here is lenient. He says you can carry on the whole roof because the mechitzos are nikaros on the outside, and it's considered mukaf ladira. Even though you're applying good asik, that's still considered surrounded for living in purposes. It's considered mukaf ladira. Shmuel says, no, you cannot carry more than 4 amos in this case because it's a very large area, and you cannot count good asik as mukaf ladira. So that's the beginning of this document. Again, we're going to see more on this document as we go on to the next Amud. So this one was pretty simple, but the point is you have 2 separate questions within Rav and Shmuel. First, we're asking a question, again, on the previous daf, what happens within the Rabbanon when every part of the roof is owned by a separate resident and they're all considered separate rishuyos? And then now in our case, we're asking what happens when the entire roof is one rishus and it's very large? Do we consider it to be like a karmelis or not? And the Gemara here finishes off. Gemara says, Itmar, we have a machlokas amoraim svina. What about by a boat, by a ship? Rav amar mutar l'taltal b'kula. Rav says you can carry on the whole ship. Shmuel amar ein metalton b'ala b'dalet. Shmuel says you can only carry dalet amos. This is basically the same machlokas that we just had by a roof. The Gemara will explain on the next Amud. Rav amar mutar l'taltal b'kula. Rav says you can carry on the whole thing. And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tzadi Amud Beis.